Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by Rick Vavro and Austin Underground. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined each and every day by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. Be sure to tell us where you're checking in from this morning, what you're drinking, get your questions in as well. We'll get to those here in just a little bit. But first, guys, let's actually talk about what happened yesterday. Sark, of course, meets with the media, goes to the mic. And Bobby, I'm going to let you start. Anything that stood out to you?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing for me is when Sark says he's the healthiest he's going to be coming out of the bye week going into Florida. You could tell the way he talked that there was a little pep in his step about that. Like he had been hoping for this or planning for this to try to be the case ultimately as he went into the SEC meat grinder. And so of all the things he said yesterday, that was the one thing where I was like, okay, this really was his plan. We talked about, I mean, look, Trey Wiseman could have played for a couple of weeks and didn't.
Yeah.
They are doing what they can to get this team rest when they need it. It's a very NFL model. I will say that. Other than the Ohio State game, everything else has been a very NFL model for Sark as it relates to health. And I think that's tremendous that they've got that going. And it's a reality now because I also even put this out there this morning on OnTexasFootball.com, Jerry and Blake. Texas usually has what they call Bloody Tuesdays, extremely vigorous, intense practices, inside drill, the whole nine, right? That's not supposed to be the case this week. So, I mean, he's paying attention to the health of his team as they get into the SEC. Let's see where all that ends up. But that was probably my largest takeaway, Blake.
Well, one thing, obviously, we're on a bye week. So one question that Sark was asked, it was about what goes on with recruiting, how all that's decided, stuff like that. So I'm actually going to play y'all that answer.
That it's always hard in season because you only have so many days that you get to be on the road. And not only do you only have so many days, we like to send guys out periodically on Thursday nights to go see guys play in person, as well as maximizing those bye weeks. And definitely during the bye weeks, I like to get out. I like to recruit. I like to get around our guys, see our committed players, and so on and so forth. So we'll evaluate that closely this week. The one guy that we historically like to get on the road this time of year is Chris Gilbert. And Chris has obviously got, does a great job, and he's a really good evaluator. He's got good rapport with not only the players we're recruiting, but their families. And he's very relatable to the high school coaches. And so Chris is active on that front. And then some guys may be out one day and not the next day because we're trying to preserve some days for later in the season. So I think we've got a good plan for this week. We'll be very active, and knowing we have the two buys. We have one later in the year. And so, you kind of do it somewhat regionally of, okay, where are we putting the spotlight this week? And then where are we going to try to put it on the next week? So I think we've got a good plan. But Gilbert will be the main one. I think that's not an on the field coach that will be out recruiting.
Yeah. So to Sark's point, I believe Kyle Flood was out to see Turntine last Thursday.
Yeah.
Somebody asked in the chat yesterday, is Texas going to Honolulu this week? I kind of wondered. I said, hey, will Texas be in Honolulu? They are not going this week to Honolulu. I think, and that's Malachi Lee, obviously. I think the hopes with a Malachi Lee recruitment is their season ends in Hawaii in late October, early November. The hope there is maybe to get him on campus and later in the year in November. What Sark said is also interesting because where does that second off week at for Texas? Right before the Georgia game. So I think you'll see more of the Texas assistants maybe head east that second bye week right before the Georgia game, right? And I'm not saying somebody won't show up in Florida for a day this week, but to Sark's point, I think you're going to see guys on the road, but it may not. It may just be one day. It may not. It's not going to be multiple days in a week because they are restricted on days they can be out. But Chris Gilbert doesn't have coaching responsibilities.
Yeah, I look
multiple days on the road is what he can do.
Yeah, I love the fact that Chris Gilbert's going on the road. He is one of an army of off, field assistants that Brandon Harris and those guys work with to try to get in and involved with from a recruiting perspective. Last year, Chris was extraordinarily integral in the recruitment of Justice Terry. So he can have a real effect on these recruitments. He, of course, is a former high school head coach, so he has a lot of ties to the high school coaches in the state of Texas as well. He relates well to coaches of all levels because he's also been a college assistant coach as well. But this is part of the outreach and overall approach, strategy, whatever you want to call it, from Steve Sarkisian, that I think is very, very strong. I really believe it's been very beneficial for the Texas. I was writing this morning, Jerry, about how, look, you and I know it. June and July, there were times when there was some real hand wringing in June and July over recruiting. Of course, then they finish up July like gangbusters, and here we are, just 2 months later in September, and they're already in on 2 guys committed elsewhere that have circled back, right, to Texas potentially. I'm not saying it's going that way for Texas, but they've circled back. They've put another offer on the table to someone as well. It's all part of it. It's all part of it. And I think that they've done a great job in that respect.
Yeah, they have. By the way, I got to bring this back up because Seth, you brought this up earlier, Blake. Seth, I'm jealous. Seth Alcoser's in Mallorca. So if that's where you're spending your off week or your life, that's really good. By the way.
All right, Bobby, before we move on, I'm going to let you tell everyone this morning about our sponsor, Austin Underground.
Yeah, absolutely. Our friend Rick Vavro and his team at Austin Underground have been helping downtown Austin grow since 2004. All those big buildings you see downtown, they have work that begins underground, and that has been with a lot of it's been with the folks at Austin Underground since 2004. They've produced a lot of work for firms that other firms just consider too risky. Rick and his team offer an end-to-end client experience, including seamless communication, budgeting, staffing, and top-notch trade partners. And most importantly, they produce solid quality work each and every time. That is Austin Underground and Rick Vavro.
All right, let's see here. Before we get to the next thing, I wanted to bring this up if I can find it. Joshua Moore says, good morning from New York City. Hook 'em turned 26 today. So happy birthday to Joshua Moore.
Hey, I was looking. This is just how big the Texas X's are in the state in New York City, Jerry. I was looking at their Instagram page yesterday. Just happened to be on it for I don't know why. I think somebody tagged me in something. You realize they had 4 different watch locations for the Sam Houston State game in New York City alone. That's how big the young. I went up there. I was up there for a business. I had business in New York one time that carried over to the weekend. And I actually went to a game. Is when Texas played Baylor and Dajae Johnson hit that big run to start the game. I was there in New York for that game. And there literally were 150 to 200 Texas fans in, I think it was Stout was the name of it. And it was an awesome atmosphere. So I want to bring that up at some point today because I feel like whether it's the Dallas Texas X's or the Houston Texas, heck, there's a Bay Area Texas X's group down in where you and I grew up, Jerry, and down in south side of Houston and LA and all these places that do really good work building the Longhorn community. I would encourage folks to reach out to those people and be part of that community as well. Just 4 different spots in New York City host Longhorn game day on last Saturday, I believe. Yeah,
and for the Texas X's groups in San Diego or Orange County, if y'all want me to come hang out, just let me know. I'll be there. Yeah, if I need to stay 2 weeks and we talk about every player every day, 1 player a day, y'all just let me know. I'll make time.
I'm waiting for the Honolulu group to head up, or Maui.
Yeah, the Maui Invitational. Ooh, should I do a live stream from the Maui Invitational this year, Bobby?
On whose dime, Jerry?
Super chats. Who wants to see me in Maui for the Invitational? Super chats.
All right, our special guest of the day is here and ready. I'm going to add him in. Coach Bob Shipley. Bob, how's it going this morning?
Coach.
Doing great.
You want to go to Maui with me, Coach? You want to do a live
there.
stream at Maui?
I'm there.
He likes Abilene too much.
No.
He wants to hang in Abilene.
No. I ain't backing down that easy from a trip to Maui. Bobby's like, you're not going to Maui, Ship, okay? Hey, but I was in Italy. I was in Italy 2 years ago. This month, in October, wearing a Texas shirt, and I hear a guy across the way holler, Texas! I just turned around and hollered, fight! So he was on the other side of the street, so we had this little Texas fight going for a little while, but unfortunately nobody else joined us.
What is fight in Italian? Hey, Coach.
I don't know.
Thanks for joining us. We were talking earlier this morning about Sark's approach to recruiting. You've actually been in the back office in recruiting at the University of Texas. And what those guys do each and every day. Chris, I'm sure you know Chris Gilbert. Can you talk a little bit about what they're doing in this off week from your perspective and what they're trying to get done on the recruiting trail?
Well, first of all, out of all the things that I've personally done for the University of Texas during my 5 years working there for multiple head coaches is recommend to Sark that he hire Chris Gilbert. Not really? That he would have hired Chris Gilbert anyway. But let me tell you what I did. So, my wife was sick. I had to retire because I had to take care of her. And Sark asked me to stay on. I said, I can't, but we got to get a guy in the Dallas area, and so let me make a phone call. So I called Bruce Chambers and I said, Bruce, we're getting killed in Dallas. We need some help. We need somebody that's got roots there. And he said, Ship, hush, Chris Gilbert. I said, okay, I knew Chris was wanting to get to the next level. And so, sure enough, he and Sark hit it off, and not that I had anything to do. He may have already had the name. I don't know, but Chris Gilbert has been an amazing addition to this staff, and don't underestimate his influence, not only in Dallas but across the southern United States in terms of a man who is very well respected, knows how to build relationships, and knows how to get across the culture that Sark is building to these parents and these high school coaches. But to answer your question, behind the scenes in recruiting, Sark was just putting all that stuff together. As you know, John Michael was a guy that we hired back when Mac Brown was there as a student worker for us in recruiting. And he's just worked his way up, and I think he's learned bits and pieces from the way that I can't even remember who was the first recruiting type.
Pat Suddes.
Pat Suddes, yeah. So Pat came from Alabama, and so that's when Mac decided to grow a recruiting department, and Pat Suddes, and so John Michael got a lot of great ideas from what they were doing at Alabama, and then in comes Charlie Strong, and he brings in
Mike Giglio.
Yeah, Giglio.
I can help you with it. Who's now at UTSA, by the way.
Yeah. Yep. Great guy. Both of them are great guys and are still successful in what they're doing. But anyway, the thing about John Michael is, as I've bragged on him so many times, he's such a great outside the box thinker. He's incredibly intelligent. He understands how to evaluate talent. And then, it's just they've got one of the best departments in the country, in my opinion, on evaluating talent. Then you throw Brandon Harris in there. Okay. yeah, here's a pool of guys that we really like, that we think fit our culture. Now, how do we fit them financially into this NIL?
Right.
And that's where Brandon Harris has been. I mean, he's been. We were joking on last night on the winning drive. We were talking about Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy, and how he's never really grasped the NIL and run with it. And if the Arkansas coach gets let go and Gundy goes to Arkansas, if he had a Brandon Harris to help him, he might be pretty dangerous, in a place like that, because Brandon is, I'm sure, a very wanted man. But anyway, I kind of derailed it, but I think they're doing an outstanding job, and they seem to really be working together as a group and as a staff to maximize their recruiting time, because it is limited.
Hey, Coach, there's a super chat for you, and I think it's an interesting discussion in general. Tubman, Texas, Coach, how much did OU have to reveal of their offensive and defense capabilities versus Auburn? I would add and Michigan to that. And how do we like our chances of exploiting them? I think that's a pretty interesting question. They've played two really good opponents in 4 games.
Yeah, they have, and they've not been base. They have not been just base vanilla. I kind of think what we've done has been base vanilla. I mean, even since Ohio State, I think Sark was a little bit more on top of his game, calling plays against Sam Houston. Of course, I could have probably called some plays against Sam Houston, but my point is, I really felt like he got in a rhythm, that we hadn't seen yet. And again, a lot of it has to do with the opponent. But I think OU I think they've shown their hand a bit in trying to, because what OU desperately needed coming into this season was momentum.
That's right.
With the new offensive coordinator, a new quarterback, and they've certainly got that. I do think that it will give PK and his staff a chance, to have a better look, an idea of what OU is going to do here in a few weeks. But I think it's, it's like poker, you got to kind of hold them, and not show any more than what you have to. And I think they had to show a little bit more to try to give their kids confidence, their donators, people in the fans, that, hey, I'm not out of here. I've still got some more left in me, says Venables. And so it's important for him to win early this year. So obviously he would show more than he would if he was the number 1 ranked team in the country coming out of the box like Texas was.
Coach, we look at the game on Saturday, and you and I talked along with Brian Irwin on yesterday on Lunch with the Coach about it. It was a game where we saw Arch kind of get his groove back. Stella got her groove back. Well, Arch got his groove back, right? So what were your takeaways in overall about that? Is it enough to kind of vault him into SEC play? Was it? I mean, I think you said Brian was the one who said, "Don't let Mama tell you how to act, Arch."
Yeah, that's right.
That's kind of how. Is that what we need to see more of? I guess. I mean, what were your general overall thoughts of the game?
Yeah, I think we had an interesting super chat last night on the winning drive, and I don't know if it was fact or fiction, but it basically said, Arch, I didn't sign up to be a role model Manning or whatever, and I think that there's been such a spotlight on him and so much attention on him that he wanted everything to be perfect, and he wasn't just being himself. I'm an old school coach. I taught all my kids, my players, not just my boys, you score a touchdown, act like you've been there, hand the ball to the official, all that stuff. But it comes to a point where Arch has to be himself, and Arch is an emotional player, and the team feeds off of that. And I think he was kind of, I'm not real sure, opening up against Ohio State, and so he was a little bit reluctant to show any swagger or any, real emotion. He started off the game, as we've already talked about, a little bit shaky, but boy, it didn't take him long to find his groove. And I'm going to tell you, I know his mama got mad at him for for doing a little taunting. And I think had we been playing a Power 4 opponent, it probably would have been a penalty.
Yeah.
You know, Sam Houston are like, those refs are like, hey, we get it, man. We can't even imagine the pressure you're under, you know. And no harm, no foul. But I was yelling. I was literally yelling, you know, you go, Arch, you go. I mean, I was so excited to see him bring back that swagger, you know. And I think that's who he is as a player.
I do too.
Yeah, and so remember the mean mug look he gave against A&M last year. I mean, he was in his zone, you know, and he was playing really well. I think that's who he is as a player. And a lot of people may not want Arch Manning. They may want Arch Manning to be more like a, you know, a wholesome Colt McCoy. You know, not that Colt McCoy would get, but, you know, just like the only celebration Colt ever did was kind of turn his arm sideways against Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl that time when he broke through the score, and that wasn't much of a celebration. But he needs to be who he is, and I think he finally is feeling like, okay, I've done the hard stuff. Now I can be who I am, and I'm an emotional player, and I'm going to make things happen and watch out because I've got this thing figured out. I've always said, and you know, whoever Scotty Scheffler's mental coach is, that's who quarterbacks need to go with. You know, because golf, every shot matters, you know, and as a quarterback, every play matters, you know, and so you got to be able to have a short memory and be thinking ahead. But I don't know what they did, how he got his ship righted, but understand it's Sam Houston, but I still think the swagger's there. The balls were there. He threw some great balls. Probably I don't know. It's hard to pick out a favorite pass because he had some good passes.
The one to DeAndre Moore on the crosser was
that's it. That's it. The one to DeAndre Moore on the crossing route. You bet. He was about to get hammered. Better pocket presence this past game, you know, in him. Of course, I've got to go, not to derail this, but I've got to go back and say the best catch of the game, Jelani McDonald.
Oh yeah.
I'm looking at Jelani McDonald and going, that dude could be a two-way player if we weren't so deep in the wide receiver room.
I was going to say, Coach, it's a discussion for a different time, but what you said about a player being themselves, I 100% agree with. And I think it's tougher now for guys because of NIL, because you're doing commercials if you're that, and you're already a Manning. So there comes this pressure of, hey, I have to act the right way for these commercials and for all to capitalize on. There's a way I'm supposed to act. That's like you brought up golf. That's the problem with pro golf right now. Nobody has a personality anymore. They're all robotic because of their endorsement deals, right? I'm so glad Arch just needs to be himself. Now, here's what comes with that. I said on one of the shows, I was like, you can go be Christian Laettner, but you got to win like Christian Laettner. That's the thing. Christian Laettner, because whatever Arch is never going to do anything right. I think we can get that out there right now. We talked about it preseason, and we talked about this for months. There's going to be a million YouTube videos every week of what he did wrong, what he did good, and everything else. Now you're seeing videos of how he acted. The guy's never going to be able to do anything right. So he just may as well go be himself.
Hey, maybe he needs
to try to be something for somebody else, you're going to fail.
Jerry, maybe he needs to do some of your reads for
he should. He should.
Hey, you remember the old we're old enough to remember. You remember the old I mean, I'm older than all you guys, but remember the old Brute commercials? Remember the Brute aftershave, you know, and they slap, you know.
Oh, yeah. You know. I got a new one this week, Coach. It's Harry's Razors. Harry's Razors.
Yeah.
Harry's telling you about Harry.
There you go.
Hey, Bob, we got another super chat for you. This one from Travis. He says, "Hey, Coach, what's your input on the deep pass to Wingo? Seemed like Wingo had to change his route and help out Arch."
There's no doubt. Wingo made a great adjustment to that. And, you know, I thought it was great to see Wingo, you know, come through and have some really big plays. But that's one thing that I haven't necessarily seen from our receivers that I was hoping we were all hoping to see. So sometimes when your quarterback is not right on the money, you got to help him. And we have not been helping him any.
Right.
But and that does help when Arch sometimes puts a little more air into the ball or puts it in a place where only his guys can get it. Sometimes, though, being on the move and under pressure, it's not going to be a perfect throw, but have Ryan Wingo come through and come around the other side and make the catch was very encouraging for me, because it kind of shows, I think, in our passing game that things are kind of coming together. We're starting to put it all together, and they understand their role. And I thought that was a great adjustment by Ryan to make that catch and really continue to help Arch with his confidence.
I think the other one you mentioned, got to go make a play. And one of the reasons we were talking earlier about what Steve Sarkisian had to say, Coach, he said that having DeAndre Moore back on the field helped Arch. Remember the very first throw from Arch, really, the one that actually got past the line of scrimmage, because the first one was batted down, was a low ball to DeAndre Moore, where DeAndre Moore went down and got it.
Yeah, slid down.
If he doesn't make that catch, Texas is punting on the first possession.
Yeah.
Instead, Texas scored on 9 straight possessions.
Right.
So to your point about, hey, we got to see if these guys can go lift each other up. DeAndre Moore did a little bit of that for Arch early in that game. And I think that's important.
That's a very interesting fact, because you wonder what would have happened to Arch had that pass skipped or he not caught it, made the effort to go the extra mile to catch that ball. What would that have done to Arch for that first drive when we're punting? Oh, great. Here we go. I think I think those guys are really dialed in, and they've got to make a play. And so Moore looked good, obviously. All the receivers look good. Parker Livingston seems to be the most consistent guy. That's where he's supposed to be when he's supposed to be there, and has great hands. And he's a big part. Maybe not home, although he's obviously showed us he has more speed than a lot of us probably thought he had earlier in the year. But he is a very reliable guy. So you can, when you got it, it's kind of how Jackson was. My younger son, Jackson Shipley. Jackson didn't have a ton of breakaway plays, but I know, I think it was his freshman year. I think it was, he led the nation in third down receptions. Just your go-to guy when you have to have that first down. This guy's going to be open. He's going to catch it. That's Parker, but Parker also has the ability to break the long one as well. So I'm just really getting some confidence in this receiver group. And, I still want to see the younger players come on and show us what they can do. We hope we would have seen more of them the last 3 weeks, but we haven't seen as much of them. But I think, like you guys were talking about earlier, man, when you get everybody healthy, like, the pro model that y'all were talking about earlier on the show, I think Sark has played his cards well on that and kept those guys rehabbing. And when we go to the Swamp, I feel like we're going to be pretty close to 100% healthy.
Thank you, Bobby.
Bob, they could be they literally could be healthier than they've been all season. I mean, people don't realize Texas has played a third of their regular season games. 4 games in, right? They have 1 season-ending injury to this point, and that happened in fall camp. That's not normal. And so, knock on wood, cross your fingers, do whatever you do. But Texas being healthy going into what I call the meat grinder of the SEC play, that you can't get better than that, because we're sitting here, Jerry and I, we're going to talk a little bit about Florida later, Bob. They've had some serious injuries. DJ Lagway's in a boot this week, the quarterback. Now, he's expected to go for Texas. It's a precautionary boot, but still, Alex January is expected back. Cole Hudson's expected back. Emmett Mosley expected back. Trey Weiser, CJ Baxter, all those guys are starter level players at the University of Texas, and they haven't been on the field at the same time this year, except for Ohio State, and even Mosley wasn't on the field at that time.
Yeah, Emmett Mosley.
He does exist, Bob.
I keep hearing that, but I want to see him on the field. And
We've actually seen him run routes at practice. So
yeah, we have. He does exist, Bob. I promise.
Okay. But it just feels like, all the frustrations that, our football team went through, but us as fans and as staff members that cover this team professionally, when you go back and look at it, it may be that the way things have unfolded up to this time, in my mind, I'm hoping we can look back and say it happened just the way it needed to happen. If Arch had come in and just didn't have to have any struggles, these first few games, was going to come to a point where he was going to hit a hard time and going to struggle. I think it's best to get it out of the way early and let him build his foundation back up to be the starting quarterback at Texas, because I don't think he knew what to expect. We wanted to expect the Heisman Trophy winner coming out, but that was not realistic at that time. But I really think we can go back and look at Sam Houston. That was a turning point in Arch's career. That's when he got his game back. And then the game after that, we're getting everybody healthy. We're kind of building a tidal wave of momentum. Not that we're going to go through the season undefeated, although that would be wonderful. But I really think our football team is heading in the right direction going into conference play, which is, as you guys were saying before I came on air, is exactly the way Sark is playing this thing. Unfortunate as the injuries have been, he knew that he had to be at the place we are right now going into SEC play.
Coach, thank you so much for joining us. You will be back on Thursday evening for another episode of Winning Drive. You can catch Coach on Monday night, Thursday night, the in-game watch. Jerry and Rod and Aaron Hogan, those guys, Jeff Howe, all participate. And then also on Mondays on Lunch with the Coach. I appreciate you, Coach Ripley.
And high school football with
I forgot
Carl Padilla and Coach Tim Buchanan, the great coach from Alito.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a fun show. Isn't it, Blake? Blake runs that show.
Coach, take care of yourself, buddy.
Okay,
Coach,
thanks, guys. Have a good one. Hook 'em.
Have a good one. Take care of Abilene for us.
Okay, let's see here. Jerry, I need you to tell us about Harry's.
Jerry's talking about Harry's. Let's do it. All right. Let's be honest. Most razors suck. Well, Harry's does. Look at this bad boy that just fell out of his case right here. Nice. Big time razor here. Let's be honest. Most razors suck. They're either way overpriced or dull after a few shaves and leave your face feeling like it's been attacked by sandpaper. That's a bad one. Don't get me started on overpriced refills. $20 for 4-pack should be illegal. That's where Harry's comes in. Harry's is the best of both worlds, a barbershop quality shave, German engineered blades, and a sleek ergonomic handle at literally half the price of other premium razors. Their precision manufacturing process measures each blade in microns. We're talking about aerospace level accuracy for sharpness and consistency, reducing irritation, those necks and razor burns. You don't want that around the neck, man. That just ruins a day and a week sometimes. Each cartridge has blades carefully spaced for too close enough for a clean pass, but not so tight they clog like most multi-blade razors. And here's the kickers. Harry isn't just one of the best engineered razors on the planet. It's also affordable. By owning their factory and cutting out the middleman, Harry's delivers top-tier blades for as low as half the price of the big brands. It's time to stop overpaying for a mediocre shave. For a limited time, our listeners can get Harry's trial set for only $8 plus a free gift at harrys.com/ontexas. Just head over to harrys.com/ontexas to receive our exclusive discount. After your purchase, they'll ask where you heard about him. You say, best damn Texas show on YouTube. That's what you say. And by the way, you know when you have a good product and a razor product is if your better half walks by and says, and picks it up and says, that looks like a good razor. Remember that, guys. Hide your Harrys because your women may take them from you.
Hide your Harrys.
Hide your Harrys. The women may take them.
Oh, gosh. All right. I need to tell everyone about Prize Picks
And how
this
do you
morning.
top that, Blake? How do you top that?
It's a tough act to follow, but that's what I'm here for. We make decisions every day, such as following Jerry Hamilton on ad reads. But on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. And with football now here, it's time for y'all to make that money. It's simple. You're just going to pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get the picks right, you can cash in, win up to 2,000 times your money. And of course, it's the best way to get in on sports action in more than 40 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and of course, right here in Texas. This week, Texas fans aren't going to like this, but I have Oregon wide receiver DeCorian Moore to have more than 42.5 receiving yards. Penn State running back Katron Allen to have more than 60.5 rushing yards. And Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson to have more than 1.5 passing touchdowns. So come join me on those picks or make your own in less than 60 seconds. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code ONTEXAS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code ONTEXAS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. And that's Prize Picks. Run your game. Okay, let's see. We have some recruiting super chats.
Let's
And
do
let's go to those, Jerry. JB says, Jerry, realistically, other than Dia, who's the most important recruit for the Horns this cycle?
I'm going to be a little different on this than a lot of people. And I've said this for a while, and I think it's the toughest one for Texas to get, and that's Jamion Winfield, the defensive lineman out of Richardson. I think he is potentially a real dude on the defensive line. And there's a reason USC went whole hog on him. I think that's the toughest one for them to get of all the guys they're trying to flip. So, but he is an elite defensive line prospect. If you haven't watched his senior tape, go take a peek. It'll remind you of some big names that went on to be really good players from this state, the Tommy Harrises of the world, those type of guys. He is an elite talent, but he's also the toughest one. And like Stephen Houston says, unless he shows up on campus, we're just talking about it. And that's what happened. That's what happened with some other guys, and that's what's going to happen later in November. Last year's when guys showed up on campus. Right now we have the college coaching carousel coming too, so we'll see. But I think he's a pretty elite defensive line prospect. Obviously, your guys that are committed right now, and I think James Johnson is the second guy behind him at D-line in that regard. I think Kendall Gerville, the Florida commitment, is a guy like that. But I think the defensive line position is really huge because it's not a deep year nationally at defensive line. So those top tier guys, there's real battles for. That's why Auburn's battling so hard for Corey Wells. And he's not considered the top 10 D-tackle prospect in the country. But those guys like Gerville, James Johnson, Winfield, they're more of a premium in this cycle because it's not as deep nationally, and there's some real battles there. Look, I think Tyler Atkinson's a huge one because Texas put so much into that, knowing they could lose a really good player in Xavier Griffin. And they went after Tyler Atkinson. That tells you how much they love Tyler Atkinson in the building. Dave actually brings up Derek Cooper. I think Derek Cooper is a big one too. Obviously, I think the guy's a tremendous player. I've seen him in person a couple times. I think he's a tremendous football player. Look, I mean, you're sitting there. You got the number one quarterback, running back, and defensive lineman committed in the state of Florida. They're not going to be easy to sign. I'm Diabell excluded. Derek Cooper and James Johnson should not be easy to sign. There should be battles for those guys, like we've talked about for years. But those are they're all really important.
Yeah, I hear y'all on that, and I think you're right. Vodney Cleveland, part of the defensive tackle class too, Jerry. Yeah, I'm looking around, and the one thing I noticed, and I think it reared its head against Ohio State, and maybe at times has shown to be an issue on this Texas team, is touchdown scores. We talked about it in the offseason, like who's going to score touchdowns on this team. Well, one kid right now down in Houston hasn't had much problems scoring touchdowns this year. I mean, Jermaine Bishop is having a year for the ages. He really is. 300 plus rushing yards last weekend alone, 5 touchdowns. He is playing receiver, running back, defensive back. He's all over the place. And I'm not saying he's the most important player. And I think it's hard to say that in a 20-person class. You know what I mean, Jerry?
Yeah.
But I really am a big believer that Texas needs more touchdown scores. And this is a guy that is one of those guys. I mean, this is what, 90. He goes 92 in one of these deals, you know?
Yeah.
And this is just from last week alone. You see him playing offense and defense. I love this kid. He may be a Xavier Worthy type for me.
I love him as a player too. Bobby and I are a little different. I think Texas has touchdown scores. They just haven't gotten the ball. Frankly, this year maybe that changes. But I think Jermaine Bishop is a elite talent. So I think he's an elite talent. Whether he plays wide out, whether he plays corner, he's going to be very big in the return game. It'll be interesting to see where he does play, because I would play him at wide receiver today, as of today at Texas. If Texas were to flip a wide receiver in this class, does that change the calculus there? That will be interesting to see where it goes, because we've seen that Grayson Littleton, not on this level, it was a different team he played on, but Grayson Littleton was excellent on offense and in the return game at Wiregrass Ranch, and Texas is playing him on defense, obviously. And you could have easily told Grayson Littleton, hey, we're playing you wide receiver, and he'd have been a tremendous player because he's got that type of speed, playmaking, and ball skills. It'll be interesting to see where Jermaine Bishop plays if Texas adds a third receiver, high school receiver in this class. But he's an elite player for sure. Way better than his ranking.
Yeah, we are going to disagree. I think Texas has decent touchdown scores. I don't know if they got elite ones like they did last year with Jaden Blue.
All right, we got one other
92-yarder, by the way. That was the darn it.
I'm coming back.
There it is.
Yeah, by the way, where Bobby and I are a little different on this is now Brock Bowers was a touchdown scorer for Georgia, but Georgia didn't have it at the running back position, and they were okay at wide receiver and won 2 national titles. So I just think there's different ways to win.
Oh, there definitely is. Definitely is. I think they help in the red zone, Jerry.
Yeah.
I mean, that was Jaden Blue out of the backfield last year was their red zone play. You know what I mean? That was the scored twice against Ohio State that way.
Yeah.
One other recruiting super chat, this one from Freelance Society. Thank you, Freelance. Jerry, how many D1 prospects are on South Lake Carroll? Are they the number 1 team right now? In my opinion, yes. Texas recruiting anyone there?
I don't know necessarily if they're recruiting anyone. If they are, it's going to be a younger player as of today. I think Southlake's got – I'd have to go down and look, but I think they probably have 7 to 9 D1 players on their team. Obviously, Brock Boyd's committed to Ohio State, right? They have a number of guys committed. Their younger sophomore talent, where are those guys? Who are those guys coming up on their team? They have DeMarcus Ware Jr. is a freshman on that team. By the way, remember that. I mean, DeMarcus Ware Jr. is probably going to be a Division I football player unless he's 5'8", 170. Okay, I mean that. So there's a lot. They have NFL kids that are going to be coming up through there. They have a sophomore offensive lineman. They have a junior offensive lineman committed somewhere. They may be more 10 to 12 D1 kids on this team. Actually, kind of zipping through their roster real quick while answering this question. They may actually be 10 to 12 D1 kids. I think they have a young kicker too. By the way, I'm not sure if he's even their starting kicker this year, but they're going to have stuff. They're going to have a couple of NFL guys rolling through every year. It may actually be closer to 10 to 12. They may have 3 D1 guys on their offensive line to start. Obviously, a couple of wideouts. I would say it's more closer to 10 to 12.
Okay, let's see here. We have switching gears to the current team. We have a couple of questions going back to Mosley. JB says, will Mosley play anytime soon? And then JB also asks, what should our expectations be of Mosley and when?
So Mosley, he's interesting. I'll say on Mosley real quick, Bobby, and see if we're on the same page. There's a guy Field in the chat says he better become the second coming of Jerry Rice. The way we talk about it. We haven't said that. We haven't said he's Jeremiah Smith or Ryan Williams or anything like that. What we have said is he was recruited to Texas to be a starter, not come off the bench. And if you listen to Sark, if people have gotten accustomed to when Sark speaks on guys, he's telling you something. Like when he said Ty Anthony Smith is a budding star at SEC Media Days, what's Ty Anthony Smith look like? A budding star. And what he said about Emmett Mosley in fall camp, Bobby, was he's bigger than you think. He's faster than you think. He was better in every way than we thought, even when we recruited him here. He's trying to give people a hint here on how good they think Emmett Mosley is. How good is he going to be if he plays the Florida game? What's his first game of the year? First game in the Texas uniform? I don't know. Do I think he's a difference maker for this team? I do think he's a difference maker for this team because he's the most physical wideout. I think he's going to be a really good blocker. He has 9 games of starting experience as a true freshman in which he was productive. And he was one of the few guys that Texas recruited to be a starter at wide receiver out of the portal. One of the few guys they looked at and thought he could come in and impact this team.
As far as timing is concerned, we've been told that he would be back by the Florida game almost 3 weeks ago. That's what they were soft circling, although they wanted to try to get him back in time for Sam Houston State. He's been dealing with a prolonged hamstring injury. And so, we think Florida. Sark made mention that they're going to be healthier than they've been all season against Florida. That would portend well, I think, for his return too. So we'll have to wait and see how all that goes. But my point being, I think he's going to be back for Florida. Jerry, as far as expectations are concerned, and how you see that, I mean, does he start out as receiver number 4? Because Texas, I mean, they don't go 4 wides. They don't go 4 wides. Parker Livingston has had a whale of a year. Bob just talked about him kind of being Mr. Reliable so far for Arch. DeAndre Moore, he's a returning starter. Ryan Wingo, big play receiver. How Sark mixes him in we'll have to see what that means. I mean, does that mean – I don't know. I mean, because Jack Endries is a really good player at tight end. You're not going to take him off the field. It'll be interesting to see how Texas gets 4 receivers on the field, or if they choose to do that. Even.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting. Look, I would say the first couple of weeks is getting your feet wet in the Texas uniform.
Yeah.
His couple of games, right? I mean, that doesn't mean he's not going to play at all, or he's not going to make a couple of really good plays for Texas. But it's also going to come down to some of this is going to come down to because I think the next 2 games is huge for the offensive line because it's 2 really good defensive fronts. And I know Florida has injuries, which we'll get to, but they're still good on the defensive front. And Oklahoma's obvious what they are as a pass rushing unit. So how much tight end help does Sark have to give the offensive line the next 2 weeks? That's probably going to tell us how much the number 3 and 4 receivers play. And how
Florida has Sark talking about Florida real quick, Jerry. Let's transition to them if you don't mind. Sark talked about the Gators yesterday and gave really high marks to their defensive front. That is one of the things I've been talking about. You've been talking about. They are going to be really strong on the front 7. I would add that while they're very strong on the front 7, they have not been a great pass rush team this season. And that may be one of the reasons why they're 1-3 at the moment, as opposed to 2-2 or 3-1 even. But I look at this Florida team and they just almost like Texas, they just haven't gotten right on offense. DJ Lagway is not having a great year. It's not a brutally bad year, but Jaden Ball, who I think is a tremendous player for them, is not playing great. I mean, I don't know if he's not playing great or if the offensive line isn't or the play calling stinks. I tend to believe that Billy Napier as offensive coordinator is probably not the right decision for that program. And they're reaping the just results of that. But I don't know what to say about Florida right now. They are a team that needs a true north, if that makes sense. Right now, I feel like they're going all over the place. Like they're just discombobulated, and they don't know which way is up. They're going to obviously, Jerry called them wounded dogs. They're going to be wounded dogs by the time Texas comes to town. So I don't know. We'll see what Texas gets out of Florida in a couple of weeks. We're going to have some guys on later this week to talk Florida with us that are Florida reporters. So hopefully it'll give their version of how that season has gone so far this year.
Yeah, and I was going to add, it's just so people have talked about DJ Langway. He's in a boot. It's more precautionary, apparently. But anytime you're in a boot and it's a toe injury, and that guy's taken a physical beating the last 3 weeks. We talked about this. South Florida's a physical team. LSU, physical, fast team that can really rush the passer. Miami can really rush the passer. Ruben Bain's a first rounder. They've faced two legitimate defenses, I think, in LSU and Miami, especially pass rush standpoint. But as far as the D-line, Caleb Banks is not expected to play against Texas, and there's some chatter he may be out for the year, if not an extended period of time. His backup, Brendan Bett, hurt his knee on that first attempted goal line stand in the fourth quarter, right knee, I believe it was. We'll see where he's at coming into that game. Then also on the defensive line, Norio, I can't pronounce his name correctly, but their nose tackle, their big nose tackle, he has been out for an extended period. He's been out a lot this year. Will he be good to go in this game? That's going to be interesting because he is their biggest defensive tackle, 350 pounds. Remember how they loved to play Desmond Watson last year, a 365-pound guy in there. Well, Michael Borio out of Atlanta, Creekside High. Texas kind of messed with him. He's 6'5", 350. He's been out. Is he going to be able to play? Tyreek Sapp, the edge, has been healthy. Obviously, Jamari Lyons has been healthy, who's a really good player. He'll play in the league, but he's not as big as they like to play over the ball. They have some real defensive line injuries. They had also lost a young edge who's a really good player, LJ McCray, before the season for the year, a guy they had high hopes for, even though he was still learning. So George Gums, I think, has had the transfer from Northern Illinois, a starting edge, has had some injury issues. So how healthy are they actually going to be? They also lost Dejon Johnson, one of their best defensive backs, looked like right knee. So we'll have to see where he's at in 2 weeks. But Florida definitely has the injury bug compared to Texas this year.
Bobby, tell us about South Point Dodge this morning.
Yeah, hey, Texas football fans, score an easy extra point this season. When you get to the point at South Point Dodge, Stark family over there, really helping people out. South Point Dodge has over 600 vehicles in stock, including the all-new 2025 Ram 1500. Get the real deal today and drive away in an all-new Ram proven to last. Plus, you can get employee incentive pricing. That's right. You pay what their employees pay. Now, that's a real deal. Score big today at South Point Dodge. Come see us off I-35 in South Austin or at southpointdodge.com. Get to the point at South Point Dodge. A couple of weeks ago, Jerry and I were out at Hayes City Store, and I tell you what, we got to see the new Ram truck, and it was a pretty sucker, dude. Go out there and check it out. South Point Dodge, just off of I-35.
More super chats this morning to get to.
I was just reading, Bobby Petronic said, you hadn't had the luxury of a cake schedule and resting injured starters 100%. They've had to try to play their injured guys through the LSU and Miami game, and it's catching up with them.
Let's see here. Amars, sorry, my screen bounced there for a second. Amars, thank you for the super chat, says, regarding running backs, considering how our O-line functions, does Texas consider this when recruiting running backs? Do we need smaller, shifty running backs like Bajant and KJ Edwards possibly?
I don't know that. Look, I will just say this. I mean, Texas loves Cedric Baxter. He is not a smaller back. And I think that there are certain times and certain offenses, Mike Shanahan's to be exact, that really was precipitated on guys that were what I call one-cut runners on outside zone plays. That's not or inside or any kind of zone play. That's not necessarily Texas. Sark likes to tinker with the offensive run scheme based on who his running backs are. That's my experience in this 5 years of watching Steve Sarkisian coach at Texas now. I don't think that's as while it is something to contemplate. I don't think it's necessarily how Sark views his scheme. He thinks his scheme can fit just about any type of running back and wants to fit their ability, actually.
And then our next super chat this morning comes from Arthur Mills. Thank you, Arthur. He says, "Hey, Bobby and Jerry, hook 'em from Atlanta. It was great to dap you guys up at the co-op on Friday. You've got the Florida trip locked in, but what are you thinking about Georgia?"
I will be there. Just hopefully Texas is 6-1 at the time, or 5-1, whatever the number is. That's Arthur. I'm coming. I'm ready for it. I'm ready to watch a game in Athens, see the Longhorns and what they can do. But Florida right now is the focus. Florida is the focus. Don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. And then OU. It's
Hey, Bobby,
it's coming. You gotta. The games are coming, guys. They're coming.
we're assuming Napier is going to be the head coach for the Texas game, right?
Yes, I mean,
I think they would have done something Monday if he was not,
or Sunday,
or Sunday. Yeah. So they're going to give him the rope to see if he can pull a couple of upsets here and find his way to 8-4. Because I said that because there's somebody brought up there's a lot of Kiffin to Florida smoke. I've heard that is the top choice of Bull Gators. If people have Bull Gators are their top guys. And our Georgia guy, James Richards, said Kiffin's not leaving Ole Miss. I'm not sure I agree with that. He's 51 now, and there are only so many of these big jobs he has a chance to get. And I'm not sure I agree with that. And I'm not saying he would definitely go to Florida, but I don't think he's at Ole Miss for life. But there are certain jobs you can look at, and he does not have a chance to get. USC, if it opens, Tennessee, if it opens, you can go down the list. You can find 5 or 6 others. So he's limited on what big jobs he can, the blue blood or near blue blood jobs he can actually get. And he's 51 years old. If Florida comes open and he passes it up, he
can't believe you're talking about Lane Kiffin and you're not talking about his daughter.
Well, I was going to bring it up because Whit Weeks will portal to Florida if Lane takes the job.
So to give people the background that are unfamiliar and don't keep up with the Twitterverse and all that stuff.
Peak SEC football, why it just means more, right? So Lane Kiffin's daughter, I think Blake's going to find the photo. Landry Kiffin announces yesterday on Instagram, social media, that her and LSU star linebacker Whit Weeks are an item. The Monday of the LSU at Ole Miss game. That's peak SEC. That's like why you love the SEC. That's why you announced this on Monday of the LSU at Ole Miss game. This is why we love the SEC, right? It just means more.
Family. Who's she rooting for? Her dad's offense or Whit Weeks on defense?
Well, look, maybe she likes Whit Weeks' smile and stash. He's a pretty funny guy on the SEC show, but she should be cheering for Lane because Lane's on track to get the Florida job and make about $11 million a year. So you always cheer for Pops in that scenario.
Yeah. Okay.
See if
last year they got into it, by the way, on the sideline, Weeks and Kiffin during the LSU Ole Miss game. So,
did they really?
Yeah,
I was unaware of that. Now,
so there's another little level of drama to go into.
I do agree with Jerry. That is peak SEC.
Yes,
that's like TMZ.
Yeah,
taking it to a different level.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see if she can get with the portal to Florida next year. That's the biggest challenge she's got in front of her.
You're now on the recruiting roster.
Yeah.
You're a team recruiting.
John 007 with the super chat says Mac Brown loves the university and Austin and is a wealth of knowledge. Has Mac been utilized in any capacity by the football program?
No, not really. I mean, I think he's spoken to the team once. And I want to say this. I think it's really important for guys like Mac Brown to give guys like Steve Sarkisian the latitude they need to make the program their own. I mean, Darrell Royal gave that to Mac. Mac should give that same latitude to Steve Sarkisian. So while Mac loves university and is a wealth of knowledge, etc., he needs to. His job is to be grandpa, and I mean this with all due respect. It's to, take the call when called upon, not necessarily calling in and saying, "Hey, what about this?" Right? So that I agree, and I think Sark has done some of that, but Sark's got a bunch of smart guys in that building himself and built a really good coaching staff. Nothing against Mac Brown any whatsoever.
And then we have a super chat here from Jeff Carey. Who do you think will make the playoffs from the Big 12?
Maybe just Texas Tech. It may. I mean, we'll see. Maybe Texas Tech and Iowa State.
Iowa State, they're playing too close games to go. They're winning too tight of games, Jerry, in my opinion, to make it.
But the question is, can you get in at 11-2? Can you get in 11-2 if you lose in the Big 12 championship game?
Yeah, of course. Yes. Yeah.
So Iowa State's schedule's interesting. They got Arizona, and then they're at Cincinnati and at Colorado, which BYU at home, Arizona State at home, at TCU, which is, I guess, becoming the sleeper pick in the Big 12, then Kansas and Oklahoma State.
I think that the two leaders in the Big 12 right now are, while Iowa State looks good at certain levels, I think the two best are TCU and Texas Tech. So those are the teams that are going to push for it more than Iowa State, in my opinion.
The TCU at Arizona State this weekend, big game coming up in the Big 12. They are at Kansas State, who's not very good, at West Virginia, at BYU. They got some tough road games coming up. They do have Iowa State, Baylor at home. It's going to be interesting. The question is if one of those teams has to be 11-1, lose in the Big 12 championship game, and go 11-2, do they get in at that point? I think that's kind of the question right now.
I think if you're 11-2, you're in, because that means you were 11-1 going in. You would have been in the top 12 on the way in.
I
would lose by 60. You're in.
I would agree. So what happens? But here's the kicker: how many ACC teams are going to get in?
Two.
That's where it gets interesting. So Georgia Tech's 4-0, Florida State, Miami. By the way, October 4th in the state of Florida, Miami at Florida State, Texas at Florida. Wild weekend in the state of Florida for college football. But does the ACC get 2 in? The
ACC is going to get at least 2, and the Big 12 is going to get at least 2. That's my opinion.
Hold
got
on.
3 last year. ACC got 3 last year.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see how it all shakes out. SEC and Big 10, do they get 4, or they get 3?
3. One gets 3, one gets 4. That's how that'll work.
So if Notre Dame wins out and goes 10-2, ACC or Big 12 teams is not going to get in. One of those won't get in.
Yeah,
comes down to Notre Dame if they can win out or not.
Notre Dame just has to beat SU. They'll beat Arkansas this weekend. The only team they're going to have real issues with, in my opinion, is going to be USC. They beat USC, they're going to be in the playoffs.
Yeah, so that's going to knock out either an ACC or Big 12 team, more than likely, at 10-2. They're 10-2. That'll be interesting to see. It's going to be fun. That's why I think college football is in a great spot.
Well, before we get to our last question or two of the day, Bobby, I'm going to let you tell everyone about Austin Underground one last time.
Yeah, appreciate it, Blake. Really enjoyed working with Rick Vavro and have for a couple of years now. He's just a great guy. a great Austinite, loves being part of the University of Texas background. He's been multiple degrees from the University of Texas. Since 2004, Austin Underground has specialized in difficult underground commercial installations. The team's engineering background gives Austin Underground the ability to perform work other firms often consider too risky. Rick and his team offer an end-to-end client experience, including seamless communication, budgeting, staffing, and top-notch trade partners. And most importantly, they produce solid quality work each and every time. That's Austin Underground. Also, if you're looking for large road projects, and I'm talking about subdivisions or work on a ranch, something like that, that's very large, make sure you check out Rick and his team's sister company. That is TexasRoad.com. Rick and his engineering background doing all kinds of good work in and around the Austin area.
All right. And then, like I said, we got one other super chat here, and this one from Brian. Thank you, Brian. Will Sark finally give in and go to the portal for offensive line this offseason? Obviously, they should have this past one.
I think that's a fair question. I mean, right now, I think that Texas is probably in a wait and see mode on everything, but doing their due diligence behind the scene. Right? I mean, that's got to be the way you do this nowadays, and not just at Texas, but everywhere. Because, you know, what you need at offensive line may differ if Trevor Gooseby decides to return.
Which I think is going to happen.
Okay, but you get my point, right? Is
100%.
Do you need a left tackle at that point? No, you probably don't. But do you want an interior guy? Maybe so. I mean, so I think, Brian, I do think that everything is on the table. I think that it was the offensive line last year was on the table. I mean, while Kyle Flood likes to develop guys, that was still on the table. So, I mean, I think that they decided not to. So we'll see where it goes from there. And let's see how these players develop. I mean,
that's my thing.
Brandon Baker. I mean, he's only started 4 games, guys.
Yeah. And look, Nick Brooks has played in 1 game. I mean, now, like, so what do these guys look like as the season moves along? And I know the chat's gonna be like, oh, they're going to struggle. Well, let's see. What do they look like as the season goes on? What are the young players? Bobby, you will rewatch the game. Daniel Cruz, Nate Kibble, and Nick Brooks are really good. Going to be really good players.
When I rewatched that's the thing I was noticing. When they ran right behind them, there were times when the guy wasn't getting touched 7-8 yards down the field. And now this wasn't in one of the things that I thought was interesting about Sam Houston State, Jerry, and Blake, they did not pull their starters.
Yeah.
Like most of the times when it gets to be these really ugly games in the fourth quarter between a very talented team like Texas and a mostly team lacking talent like Sam Houston State, what you see is both teams kind of put in their subs late in the game and let it kind of be a mosh pit, right? Well, Sam Houston State did not do that on offense or defense. Yeah. And I'm not so sure that the right side of the line of scrimmage didn't get more push late than they did early. Now, obviously, the Texas group was fresh. Sam Houston State group was tired. But, yeah, Nick Brooks, Nate Kibble, Daniel Cruz, they've all got futures. They've all got bright futures, in my opinion.
And one last one before we close out today. This one from Dante. He says, not skipping over the Florida game, but I have to ask, is it just me or is the OU front 4 look huge? Is our offensive line better than Auburn's? 10 sacks. Mason Thomas obliterated Auburn's right tackle. Their front 7 looks intimidating.
I think Texas has a better offensive scheme than Auburn. Now Cam Coleman's better than anybody on the Texas offense, period, as a prospect. He just is. It's not even close, in my opinion. But yes, Oklahoma's defense. Now, our Mason Thomas, the crazy thing is he actually had to sit out the first half of that game. And then he just came in just on fire, right? Yeah, Oklahoma's defensive front, I think, will be the best pass rushing front Texas faces because Jaden Jackson, those guys can pass rush from the inside. Even David Stone's starting to develop. And that guy was so far from reaching his ceiling. People wondered if he would even at IMG. He's finally starting to show some signs that he might come close. They have a number of guys. They're really good on the defensive front. And they're good at linebacker. That's even hidden. Now, they lost a tremendous player in what's his head last year.
Danny Stilton.
Yeah. Yeah. What's his head? Yeah. But Lewis from Carthage can play. Oshmiga from Crandall High, both in East Texas and Southeast DFW. Those guys can play. They're good at linebacker. Their secondary is where they're probably most vulnerable, but not at Kendall Daniels. Not at that spot. That guy's really good too. I think their defensive front's really good, Bobby.
Yeah, the defensive front's good. Their secondary still plays flat-footed.
Yeah.
And so they get really handsy. I talked about it yesterday. Just really, really handsy. And they should be called – penalties should be called on them on pass interference, more plays than not, to be honest. That's how Venables coaches them, and he just dares officials to call it. Dares them. It pisses me off. The other thing
– It's good coaching, though, right, Bobby? Because until they do – It is. Well,
what was he last year? What was his record last year? How good was that?
Well, but I'm just saying it's like coaching a moving screen in basketball until they start calling it on you. I mean,
all I will say to that super chat, to take the defense out of it, if Arch Manning is sacked 10 times, Arch Manning has suddenly become Jackson Arnold in the pocket. And I've never seen – I don't know if I've ever seen anybody with worse pocket presence in the history of football than Jackson Arnold. Maybe Bobby Burton would be worse.
Yeah.
But Jackson Arnold it's like there's a misfire somewhere in there with him and pocket presence. I mean, and I'm not trying to be rude to him, by the way.
It's the game you play when you recruit quarterbacks who are one-read guys their whole way through high school in a system. That is the game you play, right, in recruiting.
Well, he tried to go to a one-read offense with Hugh Freeze.
Yeah.
That works whenever you're playing an even game. As soon as they got behind, they were just toast.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football presented by Rick Valvro and Austin Underground. Of course, we want to thank Rick, along with Harry's, Prize Picks, and South Point Dodge for sponsoring today's show. Thank you all for tuning in as well. The questions, the super chats. Don't forget to head on over to ontexasfootball.com. Remember, we can't be on here all the time, but you can check out ontexasfootball.com. Use promo code OTFOG when you sign up. Get a full year for just $39.95 when you use that promo code. Again, OTFOG, and that's for new subscribers only. But, Bobby, what do you have for folks later today on here?
Well, Jerry's got a little recruiting update coming out. Jalen Lott is a hot topic, as well as a bunch of different movement that Texas is trying to get guys in. The Longhorn coaches are on the road. We talked a little bit about that earlier in this episode of On Texas Football. Also, we've got the live stream tonight. Jeff and CJ going at it a little bit, talking a little Longhorn sports. Amanda is out this week, but it should be fun there. And then we may have another little update this afternoon, waiting to see if some news breaks or not. But all in all, should be a busy day on Texas Football. Hope you guys enjoy the content. Please join us over on the message boards too. Jerry, myself, all of us answering questions on the message boards.
I will be back.
Blake, one last thing. We mentioned early that we were going to have a tailgate in Florida. That is still going on. Blake is going to put the link in the chat real quick. If you don't mind, Blake, we are going to have that tailgate in Florida. We'll be at Spurrier's Bar and Grill on Friday afternoon and then headed on Saturday. It's a 2:30 kickoff now for that Florida game. So we'll have plenty of time to tailgate. I was a little worried that it would be an 11 o'clock game and there wouldn't be much there, but we're going to do a 2:30 kick on Saturday. So hopefully everybody can join us at the tailgate too.
That's right. I just dropped it in the chat. And for those listening on podcast, it's tinyurl.com/Florida OTF. tinyurl.com/Florida OTF. And then that'll take you right to the tailgate. Well, we hope you have an outstanding day today. We'll be back tomorrow morning. So for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe.